Welcome back to our invited speakers and all distinguished participants. In the next program will be a lecture on the topic of museum and gallery that we are honored by these speakers to lecture on the topic as follows. In the first topic will be a lecture by Khun Disapong Netlomwong, a senior curator of the Office of National Museums within the Fine Arts Department of Thailand on the topic of roles of National Museum in repatriation of Thai artifacts from foreign countries to Thailand
ขอต้อนรับท่านวิทยากรและแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านเข้าสู่การเสวนาอีกครั้งค่ะต่อไปจะเป็นการบรรยายในประเด็น Museum and Gallery หรือพิพิธภัณฑ์และหอศิลป์โดยเราได้รับเกียรติจากวิทยากรทั้ง3ท่านที่ให้เกียรติมาบรรยายในประเด็นนี้ค่ะโดยหัวข้อแรกเป็นการบรรยายของคุณดิษพงษ์เนตรล้อมวงศ์พันธารักษ์อาวุโสสำนักพิพิธภัณฑสถานแห่งชาติกรมศิลปากรในหัวข้อ Roles of National Museum in Repatriation of Thai Artifacts from Foreign Countries to Thailand
Khun Disapong Netlomwong is a senior curator of the Office of National Museums within the Fine Arts Department of Thailand. As a director of research divisions, he supervised the academic research projects and exhibitions writing script. For example, Prajinburi National Museum and King Chulalongkorn Memorial Exhibition in North Cap, Norway. Currently, his ongoing research is about the reinterpretation of foreign artifacts in the collection of National Museum of Thailand.
คุณดิษพงษ์เนตรวงล้อมขออภัยค่ะคุณดิษพงษ์เนตรล้อมวงเป็นพันธรักษ์อาวุโสจากสำนักพิพิธภัณฑสถานแห่งชาติกรมศิลปากรในฐานะผู้อำนวยการฝ่ายวิจัยเป็นผู้ดูแลโครงการวิจัยเชิงวิชาการและการเขียนบทนิทรรศการเช่นพิพิธภัณฑสถานแห่งชาติปราจีนบุรีและนิทรรศการเฉลิมพระเกียรติพระบาทสมเด็จพระจุลจอมเกล้าเจ้าอยู่หัวณเมืองนอร์ทคัพประเทศนอร์เวย์ปัจจุบันท่านกำลังศึกษาวิจัยในเรื่องการตีความโบราณวัตถุจากต่างประเทศในคอลเลกชันของพิพิธภัณฑสถานแห่งชาติประเทศไทย
May I invite Khun Disapong Netlomwong to begin the lecture.
เพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลาขอเชิญคุณดิษพงษ์ขึ้นบรรยายในหัวข้อ Roles of National Museum in Repatriation of Thailand Artifacts from Foreign Country to Thailand ขอเชิญค่ะ
Thank you for introduction and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will talk about the role of National Museum in repatriation of Thai artifacts from the foreign country to Thailand, which is the work that I get involved in recently period of time. So most of the presentation is from my experience in working as the Secretariat of the Committee for Repatriation. So the background of the problem or the demand of Thai artifact to the foreign country it can be said increasing recently around 100 years ago or more, slightly earlier than that. After we signing the Berne Treaty and Bowring Treaty with the foreign country, this is an opportunity to the foreign country such as the European to contact and trade with Siam at that time, and a lot of ship and foreigner came to this region and has the curiosity about this exotic object and would like to collect and bring it to their own country. This is the photo that shows the example how the foreigner interest in the art and artifact of Thailand. And in the past, it's still permissible because at that time there are no regulation to control this kind of object. But it was not until in 1926, in the reign of King Purichanont or King Rama VII, at that time we have the Act on Export of Antiques and Objects of Art. In Buddhist era, 24 1969. It is to prohibit to export antique or objects of art out of the kingdom, except when special permission has been granted for each of the object by the council or by a committee member assigned to this duty. And the council who assigned to this duty at that time is the Royal Society. In the photo, in the center is King Rama VII and Queen Lampai Panni. And the author is the member of the Royal Society, which include Prince Damlong, the president of the Royal Society at that time, and the author vice president on each subject, which include Prince Nalisala Nuwatiwong and Phaya Boran Ratchathani, for example. At that time, the permission was signed by Prince Damlong himself to permit the art object to go out of the country. So we can say we have the control of the object since the 1926, which is very early compared to the other country. And after the Siamese Revolution in 1932, the several laws were issued and amended along with the several legislative reforms, including the issuance of the Act on Ancient Monuments, Antiques, Objects of Art, and National Museum in 1933, declaring that export of antiques and objects of art out of the kingdom require the permission of the director of the Fine Art Department. This provision is still continue in the Act on Ancient Monuments, Antiques, Objects of Art, and National Museum in 1961, and its amendment in 1992 that is in force at present. This act is not only said about control to import and export, but it also allowed the Fine Art Department, especially Office of National Museum, to control the antique shop who sold this kind of object. First, we control the objects to import and export of our country. The second, we control the shop who sell art and antique. They also need to ask the permission from the Office of National Museum by the Fine Art Department. And we also register the artifact and the art object that belong to the temple, which is the private sector, and also the private collection. We register it as a national treasure and register and announce in the Royal Gazette every year until nowadays. This is the way that we working about the law on the control of exporting art and antique of Thailand. This is an example of the permission since the period of Prince Damlong himself. When he supervised the Royal Society, the title is the Royal Society, and give the permission to Mr. Rosenberg to export the Buddha image, the seed Buddha image, to out of the country. But at that time, it's very simple form and no photo attached, so we don't know about what kind of object that we allow to take out of the country. But when the Fine Art Department take responsibility to give the permission, the permission was signed by the chief of the archaeology Office of Archaeology. Yeah. This is the time when the second act on art and antique has been enacted, is under the control of the Fine Art Department. This is an example that what we have done in the past. And this is in the present platform that we use. We use the online platform called National Single Window System for import and export antiques or object of art by Office of National Museum Fine Art Department. This system allows the people to register their need when they want to take the Buddha image or the art object out of the country. They have to register and submit their document and photograph to this system, and they have to bring the object for the inspection, and the inspection will be do by the curator of the Fine Art Department. We have doing this for a long time, and I think this system is work quite very well, because in some we also found some register art object and report back to the owner. It was stolen from the temple, and we found it when they asking for the permission, and finally we can take it back to the original owner occasionally. This is an example of the permission that we use nowadays. It's the digitally signed and can be sent directly to the custom system. The information will go directly to the Department of the Custom of Thailand. Yeah. So it's, now it's the 100% paperless work. Besides of the Thai law, the international law that talking about the illicit trafficking of the art object. The first one is the Convention on the means of prohibiting and preventing the illicit import, export, and transfer of ownership of cultural property, which is signed by 14 November 1970 in Paris, and now it's ratified by over 140 states. Normally, the convention is require the enforcement of cultural property protection along three main pillars, which is consists of preventive measure, restitution provision, and international cooperation. And the second convention is come later in June 1999, signed in Italy, in Rome, by the 48 states to strengthen the 1970 UNESCO Convention on illicit traffic, and focusing on the recovery of stolen cultural property and establishing conditions for claim of restitution and return for such objects. But unfortunately, Thailand not yet ratified those two conventions because of we need to adjust to correct the local law, the Thai Antiquity Act, to be updated, and after that we can sign the convention. So now the act is in the list to be approved by the State Council, which is actually we are in the list for a long time, but as you know, the political situation is not quite smooth, so maybe we have to wait a while before the new law had been will be enacted and we can sign these two conventions. We hopefully to ratify this convention in the future. But even we cannot sign the convention, the international convention, but we do have the bilateral agreement with many countries. For example, this is the example of the agreement between the government of the Kingdom of Thailand and the government of the Kingdom of Cambodia to combat against illicit trafficking and cross-border smuggling of movable cultural property and to restitute it to the country of origin. Thailand has signed this kind of agreement with, as I know, with Cambodia, with Peru, and some of the countries that I cannot remember at that time yet. But I would like to give the statement that the Thai government has, even we cannot ratify the international convention, but we are willing to sign the agreement with the counterpart. And we also returning the object to the Cambodia occasionally for several times. But even we have the strong protection of the law to export, but there are still demand from the foreign country that is the reason for this kind of smuggling out of the country and looting from the temple site. For example, this is a photo of the temple in Nakhon Sawan, which is the thief has get into the temple and cut off all the Buddha head in the temple. That's still running, not the ruin, but this is the temple that people still worshiping, but the thief came to the temple and cut only the head because it's easy to smuggle out of the country than the whole piece of the Buddha image. And yeah, in the many historical sites of Thailand, you will see the Buddha statue without the head. And one case that I just want to show you for an example. This is the Bodhisattva, the fragment of Avalokiteshvara found from Prasat Tamuan, Surin province. It was smuggling and hiding inside the trunk and buried in the land, in the private land. And after that, the police officer has known the information and captured the looters and deport to the Fine Art Department, to the Office of National Museum, and we take it back and restore it. Now it was exhibited in the National Museum Bangkok. One of the case that I also want to show the example is the case of Prasat Kusuan Tang lintels. Prasat Kusuan Tang is the registered national monument, and in 1964 the lintel was disappeared from the Prasat, and the Fine Art Department had found the photo of this object in the catalog of the new acquisition of the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. After that, we start to write the letter to repatriate it. At that time, the Fine Art Department has sent a letter from Director General of the Fine Art Department at that time, Mr. Thanit Yupo, wrote to request return of the artifact in 1967 and sent to Mr. Avery Brandes, who donated this lintel to the Asian Art Museum. and after that it takes time to get it back because Mr. Abhirabandet is the private collector. He is the industrialist. He has a lot of money, and he is the president of the International Olympic Committee at that time. The fine art department had negotiated with him for a long time, and it was successful when Mr. Abhirabandet came to Bangkok for reciting the opening ceremony of the Asian Games in Bangkok in 1969, I think. And after that, he returned the lintel to Thailand in 1970. So it took 4 or 5 years to take it back. Another case is Prasat Phnom Lung, that you may heard some story about the lintel of Prasat Phnom Lung before, but normally you will heard about the big part of the lintel, which is was stored and exhibit in the Chicago Art Institute in Chicago, and it was given back to Thailand because of the Cheney Foundation donate the object or the money equal to the value of the lintel to the Art Institute of Chicago, and to Art Institute of Chicago to send it back to Thailand. At that time, we have the rally, very famous story, which Prince Suphatradit Disakun, my professor, also involved in several parts of the repatriation. But but today I will talking about the smaller piece, which is kept in Thailand by the working of the Office of the National Museum, the Fine Art Department. Well, in early 1930, Prince Damrong Rachanuphap had visit to Buriram and went to Prasat Phnom Lung and took a photo survey of the Prasat. This is a photo of Prasat Phnom Lung taken during the time of the Prince Damrong visit. This is a photo taken by Prince Damrong. There will be two parts of the lintel that already falling down and broken into 2 parts. And the smaller fragment was discovered in the Capitol Antique Store in August 1965 after they would like to take it out of the country and asking for the permission at the Fine Art Department, and the curator had recognized this part of the lintel, so we are not allowed to take out of the country and seize it back in 1965. But the larger fragment not recovered at that time. According to the later statement by James Booth, director of the Art Institute of Chicago, it was sold by an unnamed antique shop in Bangkok to a foreign buyer on January 14, 1966. And now both parts of the lintel are restored at the Phnom Lung, Prasat Phnom Lung in the historical park. And recently, the case of lintel of Prasat Nong Hong and Prasat Khao Lon, the lintel of Prasat Nong Hong and Buriram Province and Prasat Khao Lon in Sakra Province disappeared around 1966 and 1968, but there were no report and record about the loss. Later, it was found that lintel were included in the catalog list of the collection of Asian Art Museum of San Francisco, California, United States of America. And we also found old photo of these two lintel, and we do the comparative study between the old photo and the original piece in the San Francisco to see the mark and broken part to make sure that it was the real piece. This is Prasat Khao Lon. It also appeared in the book Lopburi Art written by Professor Momchao Supathradit Disakun in 1967 too. In 2016, the media was airing the news of the auction of Bodhisattva statue of Prakon Chai, or Northeastern Thai style of art, by a world famous auction house. This caused many people to closely follow the Thai cultural antiques found overseas. From initial survey, it was discovered that many Thai artifacts were on display in museums in both Europe and United States. Early in 2017, a public outcry was started to demanding that the artifact in the United States to be returned to Thailand. The Ministry of Culture then started to investigation to attempt to recall this cultural antique back to Thailand. With Mr. Virarot Pochanarath, at that time he was the Minister of the Culture, presiding over the meeting in 2017, authorized the Department of Fine Art to survey the Thai artifact displayed in foreign museums that were suspected of being illegally transported out of the kingdom. The first, we conduct the search and found at least 133 Thai antiques that in about 20 museums in the U.S. And after that, Mr. Peter Haymon, the Deputy Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy of Bangkok, had come to visit the Minister of Culture to inform him about the news of the antique in U.S. and he would like to help help Thailand to get it back. So Minister gave the list of the 133 suspect artifacts to the chief of the mission. At the same time, the independent academic group under the name of Samnuk 300 Ong, led by Mr. Sunong Sak Hanwong and Mr. Damrong Linanurak and the team, started a campaign to demand back the bronze Bodhisattva statue formerly enshrined at Prasat Khao Pai Bat. And it said that it almost 30 statues formerly here was stolen out of the country. And Ministry of Culture then held a meeting to verify the fact and start the process to demanding return of the cultural artifact back to Thailand. And finally, the Prime Minister authorized to establish a committee on repatriation of stolen artifacts chaired by the Minister of Culture and other committee members, representative of the concerned state agencies such as expert, academic, lawyer, and the media. The committee main task is to determine guidelines for government-to-government requests and negotiating to bring the artifact back to Thailand. And in the first meeting, the committee had established a guideline to return it back by demanding back the artifact that has clear evidence that it was belonging to Thailand through the proof of photo, drawing, or illustration in the document. To follow up on the artifact that are the architectural part of ancient monuments such as lintel, pediment, decorative pillar, and religious site, because these artifacts are national property and can be relayed back to the other original piece remain in Thailand. And three, reclaim important artifacts that are unique to Thai culture, such as the bronze Bodhisattva statue from Prasat Khao Pai Bat. And the two lintel also the object that the committee decide to claim it back from the U.S. The U.S. counterpart for this case is the Homeland Security Investigation, in Bangkok and in San Francisco who further investigate and work on behalf of the Thai government to investigate and find the information for us, and we work very closely. And finally, the two ancient lintel were taken to the court proceeding until the Asian Art Museum admit that the two lintel likely belong to Thailand and surrender both the lintel to the SSI team for repatriation. Then we held a formal ceremony in United States and in Thailand in 2021. And after the lintel has returned to Thailand, we held a small exhibition to telling the story of the working of the Repatriation Committee and to promote to the Thai people that this kind of work take a long time and spend a lot of time and budget. So the best way is to keep it in our country for our next generation, not to let anyone to take it, because to bring it back to repatriate this kind consume a lot of time and money. Finally, the National Museum Fine Art Department of Thailand played a crucial role in the repatriation of the Thai artifacts from foreign countries through the extensive search, collaboration, and establishment of legal framework. The department actively worked toward preserving and reclaiming Thailand cultural heritage by promoting awareness and appreciation to strive to protect the integrity of Thai artifacts for the next generation. And finally, I would like to commemorate to my professor, Prince Supatradit Disakun, who inspired me a lot about working for repatriation of the artifact of Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khun Disapong Netlomwong, a senior curator from the Office of National Museums within Fine Arts Departments. And sorry for saying Khun Disapong's last name incorrect.
ขอขอบคุณคุณดิษพงษ์เนตรล้อมวงจากสำนักพิพิธภัณฑสถานแห่งชาติกรมศิลปากรค่ะและต้องขออภัยด้วยที่ในช่วงแรกมีการกล่าวนามสกุลของท่านผิดพลาดไปค่ะ
If participants has a question, please inform the staff as usual. Thank you.
หากท่านใดต้องการสอบถามคุณดิษพงษ์เพิ่มเติมนะคะสามารถติดต่อสตาฟได้เลยค่ะ
I would like to thank Khun Disapong very much about his gratitude to our professor, Prince Supatradit Disakun. He's a person who tried hard to take the lantern from Phnom Rung back to Thailand. And his work on photos published in his book, just like the guideline for all of us to working for these programs of taking back of the object from Thailand, you know, that have in other countries back to Thailand. And I would like to congratulate for Khun Tharapong. He's a secretary of the committees, at one of the committees. And I would like to add something and have to say that he's very good, very informative presentation. Congratulations for his work and to share of these things to everybody here. One thing that I would like to ask, or not really ask, but I would like to say, according to Khun Rewilding, our lawyer of our department, she already retired, he informed me that we not ratified for 1970 UNESCO conventions, but we already ratified for UNIDROIT. I asked Khun Tharapong to have a check because he said that we not ratified too. But Khun Rewilding told me, UNIDROIT already. But for the 1970 convention, just in process. And we're waiting for the new government because the government is not stable in Thailand. This is problem that our law for this is not come to the parliament, and then we waiting for that. They said the other law is more important than this, so why the Thailand is not ratified in right now. But anyway, for working in the Shannons all over the world say that Thailand is a very good country. We not ratify for 1970 UNESCO conventions, but we do much more than convention, you know. Thank you very much, Kun Disapong, for a very informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Disapong, Netlomwong, and the knowledge.
ขอขอบคุณคุณดิษพงศ์อีกครั้งแล้วก็ขอขอบคุณท่านผู้เข้าร่วมเสวนาด้วยค่ะ
For the next topic is still on the topic of museum and gallery. It was honored by Dr. Vipash Purichanont, a professor at the Department of Art History, the Faculty of Archaeology, Silpakorn University, to lecture on the topic of curating as rewilding national parks, natural resources, and biennale making.
ในหัวข้อถัดไปเราได้รับเกียรติจากอาจารย์ดร.วิภาส ภูริชานนท์อาจารย์ประจำภาควิชาประวัติศาสตร์ศิลปะคณะโบราณคดีมหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรในการบรรยายหัวข้อ Curating as Rewilding National Park, National Resource and Biennale Making ค่ะ
Dr. Vipash Purichanont is a professor at the Department of Art History, the Faculty of Archaeology, Silpakorn University, which has highly experience working in the field of museums and galleries. For example, an existing curator exhibition from the different horizons of Rock Shelter, National Gallery Bangkok, a curator of the 6th Singapore Biennale 2019, an exhibition, Every Step in the Right Direction, at the Singapore Art Museum, etc.
อาจารย์ดร.วิภาส ภูริชานนท์เป็นอาจารย์ประจำภาควิชาประวัติศาสตร์ศิลปะคณะโบราณคดีมหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรท่านมีประสบการณ์ในการทำหน้าที่ในด้านพิพิธภัณฑ์และหอศิลป์เป็นอย่างยิ่งอาทิเช่นผู้ช่วยพันธารักษ์นิทรรศการจากขอบฟ้าที่ต่างกันของ Rock Shelter หอศิลป์แห่งชาติกรุงเทพมหานครพันธารักษ์นิทรรศการทุกย่างก้าวในทิศทางที่ถูกต้องสิงคโปร์ Biennale 2019 ครั้งที่ 6 พิพิธภัณฑ์ศิลปะสิงคโปร์และอื่นๆอีกมากมายค่ะ
May I invite Dr. Vipash Purichanont to lecture on the topic Curating as Rewilding National Parks, Natural Resources, and Biennale Making.
เพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลาขอเชิญอาจารย์ดร.วิภาส ภูริชานนท์บรรยายในหัวข้อ Curating as Rewilding National Park, Natural Resources, and Biennale Making ค่ะ
ครับก็สวัสดีนะครับ Hello everyone. So I would like to say thank you to all the organizers and then all the speakers so far as well. My presentation is a bit of more like a proposal. So I hope you welcome it, and then perhaps if we have something to discuss, then I'm happy to kind of like develop in even further. So I have been working in curatorial teams for Thailand Biennale, a government-run international contemporary arts festival from 2017 to 2022, so just last year. Biennale always named this. The Thailand Biennale always names after cities. So, for example, you might have listened about Bangkok Art Biennale, Gwangju Biennale, and so forth. But Thailand Biennale is unusual. It is named after the countries and moved from one province to another province in every 2 years. And the event was organized by the Office of Contemporary Art and Culture, Ministry of Culture, in partner with Disapong Provincial Office. In 2018, it took place in Krabi, the southern province of Andaman coastline. In 2021, it was held in Nakhon Ratchasima, in northern regions. At the time of the presentation, the third edition is in Chiang Rai and it is underway. So in these presentations, I will discuss a critical takeaway from the first Thailand Biennale in Krabi. Looking through the lens of art history, I will demonstrate how national parks as an exhibition space play into the modern romantic view of nature and a tropical paradise. I will discuss how the Biennale helped reinforcing these perceptions, but some art projects also brought about new imaginations that make us rethink our relationships to the non-humans. I will discuss this approach as curatorial rewilding and open-end endeavors to help ecologies thrive, in return undawn ourselves from nature-culture binary. The first editions of Thailand Biennale was curated by Professor Jiang Jae-hong from Birmingham University in the United Kingdoms. Its title, Age of the Wonderland. The notion of Wonderland was drawn heavily from Lewis Carroll's famous children's book titled Alice's Adventure in the Wonderland, or Alice in Wonderland for short. It is a story of the young girl follow the white rabbit down his hole and then emerge in an imaginative anthropomorphic lands. As a good art historian, Professor Jiang Jae-hong drawn Chinese, Indians, and Thai mythology into his curatorial statements. So he was also mentioned about Pa Hin Ma Paan, for example. He envisions the outdoor exhibition which, quote, encourage visual explorations, engender a new ways of thinking, and invite everyone to join the journey and adventure, and to reflect on the relationship between art, nature, and everyday life, end quote. In the course of 3 months between November 2018 to February 2019, the Biennale exhibited 54 art projects by Thai and international artists from around the world. They were exhibited in Krabi Thao, Tha Pom Khong Song Nam, which is the photo that you see is over here. Also Got Klang, Hat Nopalat Thara Mu Got PP National Park, and Than Bok Korani National Park. The lead curator elaborated, quote, the selected sites that were made available for artwork were already perfectly dressed by the beauty of nature. For example, white sand beaches, palm trees, forests, and stream, end quote. Rather than discussing artwork for the project, which I have been discussing and writing extensively elsewhere, I would like to draw to this presentation to the notions of these sites and the beauty trap that we fell into. Our journey into making the Biennale into a national park were not a bed of roses. I remember the face of the rangers when we first met. It was full of confusions. The national park did not seem to like the idea that having contemporary art inside the area, because this presumed that artists would bring alien objects from the outside to make their own artworks. More importantly, the islands are already overcrowded. Hosting an art festival means more foot traffics, more trash, and more chance for the coral reef to be destroyed. I observed that the national parks seem to treat culture and nature as two separate entities, and there was an obviously tensions between environmental conservation and tourism. In the past decades, the global environmental crisis has been more severe. Philosophers, historians, anthropologists, and geologists revisit these separations of culture and nature. And for anything that we could learn from humanities, it is the nature that is a slippery term. Timothy Mortons, a literature theorist and philosopher, observed that nature is an anthropocentric view that is deeply rooted in the Romantic periods. It is a result for ecological writing that fortify the notions of nature in something out there, as a something out there, as an image. For Morton, nature is a symbolic language. It's a Pandora box. He observed that it is, quote, a word that encapsulate a potentiality infinitely series of disparate fancies of objects, end quote. I argue that to understand nature in this symbolic sense, then we can arrive to the view that Krabi is already a wonderland without art. The direct observations toward national park appear in the older article by William Cordons, an American environmentalist historian. In The Trouble with Wilderness, or Getting Back to the Wrong Natures, Cordon argued that the creation of national park in the United States of America was driven by two ideologies. First ideology has an origin in European romanticism. It is a preservation of sublime landscape that give one chance to a glimpse to the face of God. Second, there was a need to preserve the wilderness as a frontier or a free world for escapists who would like to get away from modernity. Conan also underlined that the nature as a frontier is significant to the countries, meaning the United States, because, end quote, to protect wilderness was in a very real sense to protect the nation's most sacred myths of origins, end quote. So just to give you an example, this is a work by Thomas Cole, an English-born American artist and the founder of Hudson River School of Arts movement. He played a major role in depicting America as a new natural Eden in comparison to the industrialized England in the 19th centuries. So if the founding of national park in the United States is involved both notion of nature and wonder and the modern myth of nationalism, is it worth investigating what does nature means in case of Thailand? Yellowstone National Park, the first national park in the US and the world, was found in 1872, while Thailand's first national parks were found as late as 1959. It should be noted that as early as 19th century, forestry has been one of the most important industries of Siam. Forests here rather perceived as natural resources. The end of the Second World War made available numerous armories that were quickly adopted for games in a massive scale. At the same time, the forest became relatively safe again to resume the forestry industry. We could assume that the rapid decline of wildlife happened in only a decade. The first wave of national parks were found in the time of Field Marshal Sarit Thanarat, with pressure from the Conservationist Society of Thailand, led by Dr. Bunsong Lekakun. It was not surprised that the first generation of national park in Thailand, which is like 14 of them, they are all forests. Hadnopalatara Mugot PP National Park was exhibited in late 1983. At the time that it was found, Lyle Beach was already a famous destination for backpackers and rock climbers. Local businessmen already occupying the beach sites, ready to turn them into resources. If there were any simple meaning of nature that hold the image of Krabi, I would argue that it's a Western imagination of tropical paradise. The image has been reinforced by tourist campaigns such as Osoto Magazine and later the Forever Amazing Thailand. Nonetheless, the ultimate modern myth of tropical paradise that would overshadow Krabi for many years to come is a scene from the beach, a movie in 2000s that filmed with permissions on Maya Bay Beach in 1998. Looking from the historical perspective, Thailand Biennale is nothing new, it's just another consequence. The problem of the site continued as the Biennale progressed. Through the entire time of making the Biennale and the Biennale itself, Maya Bay was closed. The national park gave the reason that they want to give the beach a time to heal herself after spending almost 2 decades receiving tourists, as many as 6,000 people per day. There was also a pressure from the lawsuit by local conservationists and authorities. Throughout my work in Krabi, the one who concerned about the rapid destruction of ecology by mass tourists were Krabi locals themselves. It was not surprised that Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment reject many proposals inside the national park. The rejection create an opportunity to work with natural sites elsewhere that were not fenced and always relate to human activities. 2 sites that emerged out of this necessity was multipurpose field in Got Klang, a small pond, and then a small pond in the Buddhist temple in Krabi town. There were exhibit sites for projects by 2 Japanese artists, Takafumi Fukasawa and Aki Inomata. Got Klang is a small inner island next to Krabi town. It is a home for a few fishermen villages. They were also producing their own localized sangyot. When we were doing site survey, Fukasawa was fascinated by the rooster crowing contest that happened weekly in the village. Not that he knows the crowing contest recently came to replace the zebra dove singing contest that has been practiced throughout southern Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. The decline of wild zebra dove population make the local opt for the roosters. Inspired the collaboration between the owner and the rooster in the contest, the artists make a mini stadium titled Football Field for Buffalo at the communal space. It is a space where the village let buffalo grazing during daytimes, and before the sunset, the field will turn into the football field for the villagers. The artists proposed to create grandstand where the audience of the Biennale can watch the buffalo in the afternoon, and the local community can use them for their football match in the evening. Sarcastic as it may sound, the project highlights the possibility of sharing space between both human and animals. Realized that she could not collaborate with any other species in Krabi with the time constraint of a few visits. Aki Inomata commissioned beavers from Walia Zoo in Japan to carve or lock as sculptures. The image of the artwork by beavers would be sent to the production team in Nakhon Pathom. They would use this image to craft stone copies of the sculpture that the beaver made. Installing them around the pond in the Buddhist temple, the result was less than a human-sized sculpture park. Walking around the pond, the audience could sense the change in perceptions as they were entering the beaver artist group exhibitions. It took a while for me to connect both projects with the bigger themes in the environmental issues. In the same article that I mentioned earlier, Curating suggests a shift from wilderness to wildness, which is a call for a change in perceptions from nature as something larger than life out there to something that's everywhere, and there is no need to reject human. Also, the recent debate of the Anthropocene, or the geological epoch in which humans changed the scenery of the earth, allow the wild to meet domestic again. Environmentalist anthropologist Dinah J. Graff observed that socio-cultural anthropology could take us back into a deeper time when humans start to tame the wild. It also gives us a hope that domestic could become feral again if we give it patience and time. This process is known as Rewilding, which popularized by journalist and environmental activist George Monbiot in his book titled Pharaohs, Rewilding the Land, Sea, and Human Life. According to Monbiot, Rewilding means release captive animal into the wild, reintroducing animal and plant species, and restoring wilderness. He also emphasized that rewilding is not freezing the scene, but allows the ecology to rebuild the broken strands in the web of life. So eventually, as ecology does its messy work, we cannot be sure that the image of nature would be the same. It means that the romantic image of wilderness may change, and the new image or understanding might need to come forth. Recently, there was scientific studies from Europe confirmed that grazing by semi-furrows cattle promote richness of the plant species in the grasslands. It could imply the Got Klang free-range buffalo grazing could also promote biodiversity. Fukasawa football field for buffalo could be viewed as a project that highlights the local rewilding practice. Innovative works encourage a wider imaginations. Although Thailand is not a habitat of beavers, but the ecological problem that beaver help solve are the one critical to us as well. The practice in creating dams result in more ponds, wider rivers, and wetlands. They slow the flow of water and cooling the soil, which means reduce the risk of wildfire and flooding. In sum, I think humans should keep the open-mindedness, similar to how we look at art. Rewilding doesn't need to happen in the confined space of national park, similar to art should not be bound by exhibition space in the museum. We should be able to understand that the nature in the backyard, like Fukusawa football field. In fact, I agree that we can go as far as collaborating with these non-human agencies like what Inomata did. Contemporary art has been in the forefront all along, but curatorial practice seemed to unable to catch up, and I'll go for it. Curating as rewilding can be an attempt or an experiment to rewild ourselves by battling with the century-old anthropocentric image of the world, whether it's a sublime, frontier, or tropical paradise. Rather than being a weekend or holiday escapist, I think it's a time to embrace the slippery and not so perfect nature that is surrounding us. By rewilding nature, we cannot do so without rewilding ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vipash Purichanont, a professor at the Department of Art History, the Faculty of Archaeology, Silpakorn University.
ขอบคุณอาจารย์ดร.วิภาส ภูริชานนท์อาจารย์ประจำภาควิชาประวัติศาสตร์ศิลปะคณะโบราณคดีมหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรค่ะ
If any participants has questions, please inform the staff. Thank you.
หากท่านใดต้องการสอบถามอาจารย์วิภาสเพิ่มเติมนะคะ สามารถติดต่อสตาฟได้เลยค่ะ
Thank you, Dr. Vipash Purichanont. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't see that.
Thank you, Dr. Fifa, for the presentation. I'm just curious whether you can also tell about the public reception of the Biennale.
Okay,
Thank
so was not that well. I think it's the first, because it's the first Biennale as well. So the public, in terms of the receptions, I think it's really hard to tell because it's happened during the high seasons of tourists. So by choosing to exhibit something about 30 projects in the national park, it's already a lot of eyeballs. But then I think with the project like this that I present, especially these two, it was the one that we work with community a lot. So for example, with this work was have Biennale sites, have ability for the community to think about using this space in a little bit more, like in the future as a place that can be lived together between two species. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vipash Purichanont and Dr. Agung Hujatnika. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vipash, for this amazing presentation. Even though you didn't include the second Biennale, which was happened in Korat on the Rajasima, but this is like a bad question. I would like to know about the curatorial practice from your experience between the actual national park in Krabi and the artificial wild or artificial forest in Nakhon Ratchasima in the Korat Zoo.
Yes.
These are there any difference, or is it the same as a procedure, or as the curatorial idea how to install the art, contemporary art in two specific sites? Thank you.
So I think they are quite similar in terms of like thinking about museum and national park. So when we got to national park, something that we learned upfront was like all the regulations, right? So there were regulations like you cannot bring this and that things inside, and then you should not bring something out, something like that. That's kind of basic. But then with national park, it's a big confined space. So there was a lot of discussions with the park themselves through committee trying to make work that's acceptable. And with the zoo, so the second one in Nakhon Ratchasima, we used Nakhon Ratchasima Zoo as a one of the sites. That's one even more like a museum. So it's like it's quite confined space, and then there's a exhibition space of like different kind of species. But then what we went through a lot was that it's already quite packed with a lot of other species, and then we kind of need to learn how they live also. So we have to learn like, okay, we cannot do sound installation because they have a better ear than us, for example. Or we couldn't do something like we need to confine ourselves in one place, which is the research center in the national park, and then we wouldn't be able to interact with the animal as much comparing to this one, which is they are semi-viral, so they are like already quite familiar with humans. So this one is nice because what Fukusawa did was like trying to figure out how the buffalo would interact with art. So he actually spent like almost a month trying to get this ball, like trying to get the buffalo to eat this ball so they can play the football. Yeah, and then he finally get it by moving the glass from outside of Got Klang inside. So it's a new test. So they kind of, it's a new test. They like the new, to try the new glass. Yeah. Not sure if I answered half of the questions. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vipash
ขอบคุณครับ
Purichanont, and all the questions.
ขอบคุณอาจารย์ดร.วิภาค ภูริชานนท์และสำหรับคำถามทั้งสองคำถามค่ะ
The next program will be a topic of exhibition histories and apropos of mapping and artwork formation by Dr. Agung Hujatnika from Institute of Technology Indonesia.
ลำดับถัดไปจะเป็นการบรรยายในหัวข้อ Exhibition History and the Apropos of Mapping and Art World Formation โดยดร. อากุง ฮูจัตนิกาจากสถาบันเทคโนโลยีประเทศอินโดนีเซียค่ะ
Currently, Dr. Agung Hujatnika is a professor at the the Institute of Technology Indonesia, and a member of the Aesthetic Research Group at the Institute of Technology Indonesia. He received many awards such as Indonesia's Contemporary Art Creation, the role of the Institute, the Australian Research Council Scholarship from the University of Sydney, and also received the Researcher with Arts for Social Change, Curating Foundation, etc.
ปัจจุบันดรอากุง หุจัตนิกาเป็นอาจารย์ประจำอยู่ที่สถาบันเทคโนโลยีประเทศอินโดนีเซียและเป็นสมาชิกของกลุ่มวิจัยสุนทรียศาสตร์และศิลปศาสตร์สถาบันเทคโนโลยีประเทศอินโดนีเซียท่านได้รับรางวัลมากมายเช่นการสร้างสรรค์ศิลปะร่วมสมัยของอินโดนีเซียบทบาทของสถาบันทุนสภาวิจัยแห่งออสเตรเลียมหาวิทยาลัยซิดนีย์และยังได้รับรางวัลวิจัยด้านศิลปะเพื่อการเปลี่ยนแปลงสังคมโดยมูลนิธิคูราเวลเป็นต้น
May I invite Dr. Agung Hujatnika to begin the lecture?
ขอเชิญดรอากุง หุจัตนิกาค่ะ
Thank you for the introduction. I would also like to thank the Silpakorn University and everyone at the organizing committee for inviting me to this very fascinating symposium. To be honest, this is the first time for me to speak at a symposium that brings diverse perspective from archaeology to art history. And I've been learning a lot from all the fellow speakers and also from the response from the audience, so thank you so much for that. My presentation here is developed from my interest in what has been called curatorial studies. And this interest is closely tied to my role or my practice as a researcher as well as independent curator. But maybe different from the majority of curators in Southeast Asia or maybe in Thailand that usually have training in, like formal training in art history. I actually consider myself a self-curator, self-taught curator. So at the Bandung Institute of Technology, where I studied and currently teach, we use the term art studies to refer to our academic programs that focus on diverse types of research and teachings related to visual art. And this is somewhat distinct from conventional art historical researches, which primarily concentrate on in-depth analysis of artworks or artists. Since the first inception of the programs in the early 1990s, our students have been given the freedom to research a wide array of topics related to visual art, including utilizing various concepts and theories that are not limited to, for instance, aesthetics or the methods like visual analysis of like Panofskian iconography, for instance. And from that inception, the focus of our academic research encompass a wide range of topics from artworks, auction houses, artists' biography, art commission projects, artist studios, archives, exhibitions, art collecting, art market, etc. And it actually covers the modern to contemporary periods. This, however, doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge the importance of art history as an academic discipline. I personally believe that the art historical methods and concepts are actually implied in many of our research, yet in a very flexible way. So in 2014, our school initiated a master program in arts management and curatorship. And it must be acknowledged that this initiative was driven by a specific need to respond to the ongoing situation at that time, especially when art exhibition in Indonesia and also Southeast Asia were flourishing. Following the biennalization, the art fairs boom in the mid-2000s, the rapid growth of new galleries, and the high demands for professionals in exhibition making. So that was the setting that we finally launched this program. And it is our objective also that we don't only envision our graduates as practitioners, meaning solely as curators or exhibition makers or organizers. Our curriculum also gives an option to our students to become researchers of exhibitions. Exhibitions in different formats such as Biennale, as mentioned by Vipash, festivals, museum exhibitions, up to like art and activism projects, but done by artists, etc. They all become like specific subjects of study. And this framework enables our school to delve into the intricate realm of curatorial practices that extend beyond the conventional boundaries and embrace diverse aspects of the art mediation and reception. And when we initiated this program, the term exhibition histories had already begun to be discussed in many books and publications, but it hadn't yet sparked any debates and questions that have actually unfolded in recent years. I'm not going to also delve into the specific of the debate here, but my presentation today would like to engage with one of the questions raised in that discourse, which is, actually it was explicitly written by Professor Patrick Flores. It's about why choose exhibition histories instead of just art history. I quote, "These are the demands of exhibition history. The question, of course, is what kinds of intelligence and subjectivity can profess to this responsibility of this task? Is it the reconstructed art historian? Is it the curator? Is it the ethnographer of the art world? Or an assemblage of, or an assemblage or relay of all of these?" So this was actually written in an online journal called British something. I forget. Yeah, British Art Studies, which is available online. So I'd like to share my experience working on a small study actually of exhibitions, which I did in 2017. In 2017, I curated an exhibition titled Art Turns, Word Turns. It was an inaugural event of a private museum in Jakarta called the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art Nusantara, or MACAN. Art Turns, Word Turns is an exhibition that presents a collection built by a private Indonesian collector, and it consists of thousands of paintings, drawings, installations, sculptures, video, and prints by artists from different countries in the world. So initially, the idea to feature materials about exhibitions arose from our need to supplement the museum collection with historical narratives on Indonesian art. As you may imagine that private collections are usually quite arbitrary in terms of selection and acquisition. And we thought that the existing collection was insufficient to provide a comprehensive chronological stories. So these are just some views of the museums and the exhibition, the inaugural exhibition. So we started the research for these exhibitions by collecting many materials on exhibitions that happen in Indonesia. Because there was a section that only focused on works by Indonesian artists, and the archives and all the ephemeras related to the exhibition are actually supplement in this section. So this kind of local focus was also an attempt to provide a greater space for discussion about the social formation of the scene or the art world, and it's quite ambitious. We wanted to cover the 20th century. It traces a period from the first use of the term stelling, or sometimes stelling, a word adapted from the Dutch language, tentoonstelling or stelling, meaning exhibition or presentation. So studies about exhibition is perhaps not entirely new area in Indonesia, especially if we look closely at writings or criticism, papers, also books that show how significant reliance, how the writers, historians, and critics rely a lot on the information about modern and contemporary art exhibitions. Since the early 20th century, articles have been published in diverse Indonesian mass media outlets, and some of them discuss exhibition in some depth, although they don't stray far from issues about artistic agencies and the prominence of the art objects. But these articles and columns in newspapers and magazines have served as spaces also for debates. And the main materials used to present this project are archival documents like magazines, newspapers, catalogs, leaflets, books, photos, postcard, invitations, etc., in the form of ephemeras of artifacts, as well as copies collected from various sources. And the decision to showcase these archival materials as objects was based on the desire to emphasize the empirical tactile characteristic of these historical resources, and to locate them in exhibition that tells about historical periods. So although it's fundamentally an exercise in inventory, the construction of this we propose a timeline, and this proposed timeline is also an attempt to historicize a number of exhibitions that were considered important as a breakthrough and potentially become a milestone for Indonesian canon exhibition. Group exhibitions receive a greater portion of discussion because we think that they may be considered as events of singular or curatorial complexity. And in every discussion about exhibitions, issues surrounding the agency of artists still cannot avoid mention. However, we also emphasize on the significant role of art institutions, patrons, circles, associations, galleries, spaces, museums, as well as those who work in exhibitions like managers, curators, of course, writers, and of course the audience. And as part of an effort to construct a history, I propose a periodization that is not based on stylistic developments or aesthetic principles. Instead, I look at how exhibition spaces, galleries, artist groups, and the formation of art institutions play a crucial role in shaping the establishment of modern art practices. The timeline in this section represents a series of exhibitions that can serve as a gateway to discuss the evolution of artwork formation in Indonesia throughout the 20th century. And 20th century is a dynamic historical period. It was marked not only by the birth, the growth, and the establishment of Indonesia as a nation state, but also by exhibition that we categorize into 7 developmental phases in this project. First is institutional antecedents, 1900 to 1913. Second, the emergence, 1914 to 1941. Consolidation, 1942 to 1945. Decolonization, 1946, 1950. Ideological antagonism, 1951, 1965. Formation of urban society, 1966 to 1980. And the contemporary turn, which start 1980 up to now. And we also managed to create a kind of typology of exhibitions. And we can easily differentiate between exhibition that happen in one period, because it often depends on the patronage, whether it's private or government, or like, you know, self-funded and initiated by artists. And in the explanation of the timeline, I also discussed the significance of artist interaction with various individuals in the politics, for instance. Of course, gallery owners, dealers, collectors, and all that. So I'm not going to go into details explanation about the content of the section, but one of the findings in this study is how we see the canonization of Indonesian visual art has often been tied to the dominant national historical narrative. So normally in National Gallery, the periodization of the collection is really based on the narrative, like the official narrative of national history. And actually this research result in something different. The national, I can call national art history, for instance, frequently mentioned Raden Saleh, of course, and the Parsagi group as pioneering artists, or the pioneer modern artists in Indonesia. It's partly also because their works are often seen as a representation of resistance against the colonial power. And this dominant historical narrative tends to be narrow, as it highlights only, you know, the spirit of nationalism as the sole driving force behind the birth of modern art in Indonesia. Sorry if it's too small, but this is the first period in the timeline, which is called the institutional antecedent. So in my research, the first question I had to address is, when was the first time an exhibition was understood to be an event presented by Artworks Society? Exhibition has to be understood as more than just a daily display of objects. It is an act, or a result of an act, of intentionally displaying items to deliver a certain message. Within the context of modern art, the term exhibition even alludes to a format of artifact presentation that has the intention of communicating and mediating to the public. And that allows an object to be considered artistic, and exhibition eventually serve as one of the elements that validate the status of an object as art. At the beginning of 20th century, there was a growth in the development of exhibitions following the formation of Netherlands Indische Kunstkring, or Dutch East Indies Art Circle, which gather elite and art lovers residing in the former Indonesia, the Dutch Indies area, and some of them were also painters. This circle actively held many art activities, including performance, theater performance, concerts, exhibition, not only in Batavia, but also in many other cities, such as Semarang, Bandung, Surabaya, etc. But this has been rarely highlighted in the national version of art history. In 1902, this art circle, the Netherlands Indisch Kunstkring, for instance, show a production of work by Rembrandt van Rijn, and it traveled to other cities, to Bandung, Semarang, Jogja, and Medan. It was an exhibition that with free admission. They didn't charge visitors to pay to see the exhibition, and they also organized a talk or a seminar event on the work and the figure of Rembrandt. In 1905, they held solo shows by some European artists like Max Fleischer and O.J. Neumann-Kamp, and also with the same pattern that they toured the exhibition and they didn't charge any admissions. Also, this is some views from the exhibition organized by this art circle. And then this is the following period, which I call the emergence. Don't worry, I'm not going to show all 7 periodization because it's going to be very long. So the emergence is about the establishment of Batavia Kunstkring, or as a proto-museum actually. It was officiated in 1914, and it was marked by the launching of a building designed by Dutch architect P.A.G. Moyen, and in addition to its exhibition space, it also has offices, meeting rooms, a hall or a studio for painting and drawing, and library. And this building became the headquarters for the Netherlands Indische Kunstkring activities in other cities. So it was really projected as an institution that will develop into a modern art museum in its future. But the plan did not receive support from the Dutch Indies government. So this is the building of Batavia Kunstkring. It still exists until now, but it's already converted into, I think, restaurant. It's still a heritage building. So one of the Batavia Kunstkring milestone exhibition, for example, was the traveling exhibition of Regno collection, which shows works collected by P.A. Regno, a Belgian collector and industrialist who owned several paint factories in several locations in the Dutch Indies areas. The exhibition shows European modernist work by, for instance, Pablo Picasso, Marc Chagall, Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, Wassily Kandinsky, George Grosz, etc. It was held in a colonized territory, but was still considered as phenomenal event, because up to that period, 1930s, these works were still regarded controversial even in the Netherlands. Claire Holt, for instance, in her book, wrote that there's a possibility that local or local painters also visit the exhibition, and so it could be assumed that the exhibition had big influence on this growth of the indigenous painters. Another exhibition was called Tentoonstelling Balinese Kunst van Pitamaha, which is held in 1936, and it could be regarded as important milestone in the history of Balinese art. This exhibition was also traveled to Bandung and Semarang, and marked the first exhibition by Balinese artists presented as individual artists and no longer anonymous. Usually, like before, their works were more considered as souvenirs and no recognition of the name, for instance. But this exhibition of Pitamaha was considered successful also in terms of commercialization, and it actually an initiative of two European painters, Rudolf Boni and Walter Spaes, who helped the Balinese artists to build an association called Pitamaha. And just to conclude, so why exhibition histories? I think because this term encourages us to look beyond merely viewing art as objects or individual objects, like exclusive objects. The exhibition histories prompt us to perceive art as an integral part of complex social process, where exhibition become the melting point of various social elements in the art world. And by utilizing the timeline of the exhibition, we can mark the emergence of the art space, the role of institution, and to say that exhibition history serve as a complement to art history. And this is actually my personal opinion. And furthermore, it also offers alternative perspective that enrich our understanding of the artwork's formation and challenge the preconceived notion established in this case by the post-colonial or nationalist narrative produced by the state. And while trying to tell stories about exhibition, I started to realize more how power relations work in the art world. So I think that's for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Agung Hujatnika, from professor at the Institute of Technology Indonesia. If participant has a question, please inform the staff. Thank you.
ขอขอบคุณดร. อากุง หูจัตนิกาจากสถาบันเทคโนโลยีประเทศอินโดนีเซียค่ะหากท่านใดต้องการสอบถามดร. อากุงนะคะสามารถติดต่อสตาฟได้เลยค่ะ
Okay, thank you, Dr. Agung Hujatnika.
ขอขอบคุณดร. อากุงค่ะ
That will be all for morning session. Thank you to all honored speakers for lecturing in various interesting topics.
จบการบรรยายในช่วงเช้านี้แล้วขอขอบคุณท่านวิทยากรทุกท่านที่ให้เกียรติมาร่วมการเสวนาในหัวข้อต่างๆซึ่งมีความน่าสนใจเป็นอย่างยิ่งค่ะ
Now it's about 12:15 p.m. Invite you all, honorable guests and speakers to relax and have lunch. Today, for lunch, you may use to have at restaurant near Silpakorn University, such as Tha Chang, Tha Maharaj. And for using the bathroom, you can use the service at the ground floor of the auditorium. We will resume the symposium again in the topic of cultural heritage management at 1 p.m. and 15.
ขณะนี้เป็นเวลา 12:15 น.ขอเชิญแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านและวิทยากรพักผ่อนทำอัธยาศัย และรับประทานอาหารกลางวันสำหรับมื้อเที่ยงวันนี้ท่านอาจสามารถเลือกรับประทานได้ที่ร้านอาหารใกล้มหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรเช่นบริเวณท่าช้างท่ามหาราชและท่าพระจันทร์สำหรับการใช้ห้องน้ำท่านสามารถใช้บริการได้ที่บริเวณโถงด้านล่างหอประชุมโดยเราจะกลับเข้าสู่การเสวนาอีกครั้งเป็นเวลา 13:30 น.ในประเด็นเรื่องการจัดการมรดกวัฒนธรรมค่ะ